right on YouTube's. So it's all in primer. The BMW, it's all in primer, but the repairs had to go into the shut a little bit. So I've got a couple of options really. Obviously, if it's sort of close, quite often you can mask it, get the door shut, mask it, and you probably would just about get enough paint in there with the door shut. Or what I have done in the, you know, I do sometimes is go to the next feature line. While I'm masking it for paint, I will just blow some base coat in the edge just to make sure I get it with colour, and then shut the door, mask it as normal, and then paint it as normal, and that's normally good enough. But this is yeah, it's a bit further than that will, you know, than I'd be able to get with base coat and lacquer with the door shut. So a couple of options really. It's either take that door off, which is not a massive thing to do. We'd have to take the door card off so I can put it on a stand properly, so it stood up the right way. So take door card off, disconnect the electrics, get the door off, which is fine. It's not a big issue to do that, but then I will not be able to get it in here. I'd have to do 2 separate paint jobs then, because I can paint this job and get the bumpers in here and paint all at the same time. So if I take the door off, that messes that up for me. So what I've done, utilising the masking that I've already used for primer, and what I do is I've already sort of preempt that I'm going to do this, so it's all prepped. I've just covered it up. I just got to put a soft edge in there. So I'm going to paint up beyond here, come off this feature line here, and just reuse this masking that I've already used for primer. All the car's already sheeted up and bagged up, so I ain't got to worry about any of that. So what I do is I'll have to do a bit of a blowing so feature line disappears a little bit down here, but I'll be able to do something with it. So I'll just prep this edge up, leave all this unprepped, and I'll just blow this in, mix some colour, gives me an opportunity to do a spray out card as well. So I'll do a spray out card, paint this edge in, clear coat this edge in, dry it, and then that's taken care of. I ain't got to remask it. I'll just use this primer masking. I can let the overspray go over this. It doesn't matter because I'm going to be rubbing it down. And then I can just prep it and mask it as normal. So yeah, that's probably the best option to do. I'm not really going to have to remask anything. Just use masking that's already on there. And then that takes care of that little issue. And I can just prep it and paint it as normal, mask it as normal. So yeah, get some colour mixed up. We'll do a little blow in on that door shut. Right then YouTube, so yeah, gonna just blow this in before I prep it. So any of the overspray that goes over that primer will just get prepped out and act as a bit of a guide coat actually. So I'm just giving that edge a little tickle with some 320 grit soft pad, and then go over that with 500 grit and then 600 grit, just to refine it a little bit more. You know, sometimes them soft pads can leave edges a little bit, you know, look a little bit scory on high metallic colours. So, well, it does on the Mipa system anyway. So yeah, I always finish off in 600 grit, just to make sure it doesn't show any scratches through it. So yeah, I do this method often. Sometimes, you know, it's unavoidable that your repair's gonna go into the shut a little bit, so I try to keep it to a feature line. There's normally a couple of feature lines that step in on a door shut, so yeah, try and find a feature line to go to. All the other options, obviously, take the door off. So yeah, again, it doesn't take long to do it. Mix a bit of colour up, and like I said in the intro, utilise the masking that's on there. So there's not a great deal of masking to do. I sort of pre-mask it as if I was going to be painting in there anyway, up to the feature line that I want to put the paint edge to, and then just cover that over with some tape, just for the primer. And then, you know, it's just a case of ripping off a little bit of tape, prepping it, and then doing it a little bit of soft edge on the feature line that you're going to be painting to. So I've done the old classic fold the tape over your knee soft edge. It's a bit of an old school type of soft edge. I'm not sure if people do it that way still. You can use all the foams and all that, but back in the day when I was learning, we never had soft edge foam, so it took me a little while to get the knack of it, to be honest with you. I used to have to get people to do it for me in the early days. I used to go up to a guy and just say, can you do the soft edge for me, and he's just used to reel off lengths of soft edge for me. So yeah, I'm just blowing that in now. I didn't turn the camera on for the base coat part, so just a couple of coats of clear coat going in there. So it's a couple of coats of base coat, covered okay this colour. So two light coats of base coat, and then 2 light coats of clear coat, and then the feature line sort of disappears at the bottom there. So what I've done is I've carried on that soft edge right down to the bottom, even though there was no feature line right at the bottom, and then pulled it away. Add a tiny little bit more clear coat in that area. That area's lightly scotched in there and cleaned up, and then yeah, just pull the masking back, put a little bit of clear coat a bit further on, and then just a little bit of fade out thinner. Pull that little bit of masking away, and a little bit of fade out thinner up there. Pull that soft edge off. So yeah, always pull your soft edges off in case you got any paint that's crept under it. And then yeah, give that a little lamp off, and then yeah, I carried on and prepped it. So I didn't film any of the preparation on the paint because the video would be a bit too long with the preparation. But if you haven't seen the first part, I've got the repair stage of this job. If you want to go and check that out on my channel, the repair stage is there so you can see the damage and the repairing that I had to do on this job. And yeah, so we're just starting the paint stage now, so I'm gonna wet and wet it. So I've got quarter panel and 2 doors to do, and 2 bumpers, and it's a real tight squeeze in my booth. It's really cold at the moment, so this footage is from last year. So I've got a microwave out the back, and just to take the chill off the paint, I bung it in there for 10-12 seconds, just to get a little bit of warmth into it. I don't seem to have any issues with it. I know it's not a thing that's written in the rule book of painting, but it does seem to work. Just takes the chill off the paint, helps it apply a bit smoother. It's always good to try and get your paint temperature around the same temperature as your panels is ideal, really, in an ideal world. But yeah, so I'm just putting 1 coat of wet and wet over the bumpers. I do most of the time put wet and wet over the bumpers, just sort of seals it all in. There's a lot of areas that you have to sand, and yeah, if there's any little light scratching and stuff, or any chips that you may have had to fill in on a bumper, it's nice just to put a coat of wet and wet over it, get it all uniform. So the wet and wet I'm using is Mipa F37. They're designated wet and wet. And the spray gun I'm using is a Satajet 1500B, and that's got a 1.4, and that's an RP. That, and I spray it at about 2.2 bar, so I up the pressure a bit, have it full fan, full fluid, and then yeah, just up the pressure a little bit, just to get it to sort of atomize a bit finer and get it on there nice and wet. Get a nice wet even coat. You want that wet on wet to go on there like your top coat, really, like your clear coat. Just get a nice even wet coat on there, get it on there as smooth as possible. You know, if your wet and wet's got texture, it does have some texture, you're not going to, you know, have it without any texture, but you want to try and minimize that texture. So that texture will just carry on right through all the other paint stages and show through. But yeah, you know, you're always going to get a slight variation, having wet and wet under theirs if you didn't have wet and wet underneath it. So yeah, it's always good to get it on there nice and wet. as you can see, it's a tight squeeze in my booth. My booth is slightly shorter than a standard size booth because of where it is. So it's about 4 foot shorter than a standard size booth. So that, you know, that 4 foot that's been taken off of that booth does make it hard work to fit in parts with the vehicle. So yeah, there's a lot of angling of the vehicle depending when I'm painting. Does take a fair bit of figuring out and a little bit of trial and error if I want to get it all in there. But I managed to get it in there. I get around it. I have to adapt my spraying around it. It's not ideal. I'd love a big booth. Space, you know, is always a bonus in this job, to have as much space as possible. But yeah, you know, to paint this job and just leave one bumper out and to have to rerun the booth and that again, you know, the energy costs and the time as well, doing another paint job just to leave one bumper out. I make it work a lot of the time. But if there was anything else to go in there, you know, like I said, if I had to take that door off, then I would have changed the way I painted this. I would have just done the car on its own, and then I would have just done the parts on their own. Or, well, no, to be honest with you, I would have done the car and the door and then done the bumpers on their own. So yeah, covered up the panels on the car that I was painting, so I didn't want to overspray to get on them. But there's a couple of little breakthrough areas on the primer areas. There's a couple of little breakthroughs here and there. So yeah, once the bumpers had a coat on there, I pulled that masking off, and then yeah, just blow in a little bit so, you know, I don't want to cover all of that with the wet on wet. So yeah, just the little areas where I've got a couple of little breakthroughs. And yeah, you sometimes you're going to get, it always seems to creep further than the base coat and clear in a door shut on a soft edge. So I'm sort of angling the gun sort of towards where that soft edge is sat in that door shut, instead of angling the, you know, the overspray as if it would hit the bottom of that soft edge. I'm angling it so it hits the top, and that does seem to help. It helps minimise it creeping under, because you can pull that soft edge off after you've painted it, and you'll have a little line this where, you know, where your primer's just gone a little bit further. So yeah, always try and angle it away from the surface of where you've done a soft edge, if you know what I mean. Well, I know what I mean, I think. But so yeah, a couple of little blow-ins there, and yeah, once that's gone off, next stage would be putting a coat of blender coat over it. So yeah, just going to only need to put blender coat over the car, not over the panels, you know, the bumpers. So it's Mipa blender coat it's called, and you just apply it over the whole job. You don't have to apply it just in the blend area. You apply it over the whole job, and it really does aid with blending, especially on high metallic colours. You know, these silvery blues like this colour can be a little bit troublesome in blend areas with halos around them. So it just helps. It aids with the blend and helps the metallic lay down a bit nicer, and it fills in all them little micro scratches as well. So it's the micro scratches that can highlight a blend sometimes, where you've just got small light amount of base coat in a blend area. It can pick up, you know, your blending scratches. So, you know, the blend area has been sanded with 800 grit on a DA and 1000 grit soft pad and a grey scotch, and sometimes it will pick up those scratches if it's a light coat of base coat. So yeah, you put one coat on over the whole lot, dry it out. It's not like you have to put wet base coat into wet blender on this system. You just let it all dry out, and yeah, it does a really good job. Does a really good job of filling in micro scratches and helping with your blending. So it's Mipa water base going on here, and the way I apply it, there's a couple of ways you can apply it. It's not a one visit type system, but I apply it in basically in 2 applications. If there's a normal covering colour, I can apply it in 2 applications. So you put a lightish coat on for your first coat, just get all your primer areas covered, then dry that coat out. So make sure that first application's dry, and then on the second application I do it as like a double coat. So yeah, 2 medium wet coats on top of each other. You know, with water base you need heat and air volume to dry it, especially, you know, in the UK in the winter months with cold weather and cold damp air about. You need heat and dry air to, you know, you need to dehydrate that base coat, because you'll have issues with it otherwise. So yeah, on the second application, so with the first application I can just dry that out with a normal dryer. You know, I use a couple of different dryers, an A&I self-heating one and a Satajet one. So I dry it out at normal booth temperature at about 23 degrees. And then for the second application, where I've put a double coat on, I put the spray booth on bake then at 45 degrees, let the heat get in there, and then dry that second application out. So yeah, you can see obviously I haven't got a lot of room in there. It is tight, it is awkward for me, but I am used to it, and I'm only small, so I can get around it. But it's a lot of changing the way you have to angle the spray gun and your wrist. But I'm that used to it now that, you know, it doesn't you know, impede me too much. But yeah, it is a struggle trying to fit it all in there and being tight up against the walls, but you just got to work around it, you know. I can still get the jobs clean, and I can still get, you know, coverage decent everywhere. It's just a bit harder work, that's all really. But like I say, I am used to it. So you can see now this is second application. I just double up on it, start from the top or the bottom, work my way down or up, and then come back across everything, go a little bit further in the blend area, trying to just blend the back end of that quarter where it meets the tailgate, and yeah, just take that last application, just take that blending zone a little bit further, triggering, you know, feathering the trigger on the spray gun, letting it sort of drift out, get all the blending done while it's wet. I've had to go up that pillar a little bit because there was a couple of marks where I took the little trim off, so I sort of had to go up that pillar a little bit. And you can see with this base coat, it looks really patchy and really textured when it's wet, but once you've dried it out and you do the drop coating stage, I've never had any issues with it being cloudy or textured. It looks super smooth when it's dry. When it's drop coated, all that haze, you know, that cloudiness and haziness completely disappears. It's just the way it looks when it's wet, and you have to just get used to it. Just take a bit of getting used to. It makes you want to put more base coat on to try and smooth it out and even it out, but it's detrimental to do that with this base coat. Just let it look patchy and textured. You just ignore that, because like I say, when it dries out, it's super smooth, and all the cloudiness and the patchiness is gone in 1 or 2 drop coats. no problem. Never had any issues with that at all. It blends really well. It lays down really nice when it's dry. It's really smooth. It doesn't cause any pinch back in the clear coat. And yeah, like I say, don't have any issues with it being cloudy. Yeah, you just got to be careful with it, not to overload it really, this base coat. Not to, you know, try and whack it all on there sopping wet, because it, you know, you'll have drying issues with it. And I've had drying issues with this base coat. It has caused me some trouble when I first started using it. With it, you know, putting it on too heavy. It's got really good coverage, so it doesn't need to be on there heavy. Just make sure you get the coverage, really. That's all you need to do. Spray gun that I put my water base on with, it's a Satajet X3500, and I've got a 1.2i setup on that gun, and it's a HVLP. I did have a 1.3 setup with that gun when I bought the gun, and yeah, it just, they recommend a 1.2 with a Satajet. The 1.3 was a little bit too heavy, so I was winding the fluid in quite a bit on the 1.3. 1.2 is just that little bit lighter on the coat, so you know it doesn't overload so much. And yeah, it works really well, the 1.2. And the eye pattern's ideal for base coat, for water base coat. It's a bit more controllable, the eye pattern, than the O, where the O's got a sort of wetter spot in the middle, so it's a bit heavier in the middle. Where the eye pattern's more even and straighter, it puts a more even film of base coat on there, water base coat, and it's where it's a little bit more controllable. The eye pattern it's really good for your blending. You know, when you're blending out on a panel, it works really well for that as well. You see, I have to make a few little adjustments, moving that bumper just to get around it. It is awkward. Having to angle my wrists around and getting around areas and not touch stuff. It is awkward. So now it's all dried out. We're on to the drop coat. So one bar drop coat. Yeah, over the flats and the straights, it's full trigger. I do feather the trigger out in blending areas, and you just want to get a nice use that full width of the fan for the drop coat. So pull the spray gun back a bit, increase your distance from what you would be with your normal coat, and then one bar, and just let it drop on there. And it does look, it looks like it's spat on there when it's wet, but when it dries out, all of that completely disappears, and any cloudiness that may be left in that base coat is gone with that drop coat. It's one or two coats really on the drop coat. Colours like this, I do two coats normally on a drop coat. You can lighten up the shade a little bit with a second drop coat, but darker colours, ones that are not so high aluminium content, they're you get away with one drop coat no problem, and you're not really supposed to blow dry it, but it's only at one bar. And yeah, just if you're going to give it that second drop coat, you want to make sure that first drop coat's dried out first. So jobs like this where I've got blending zones on the car, and then I've got the bumpers, I work it out what's most important, because I try to get my paint, the amount of paint that I've mixed, as accurate as possible. I don't want to run out, but you know, I don't want to have too much left over as well, because it costs money. So I try and, you know, work it out strategically. So it's more important to get a decent drop coat on the car, because that's going to show if I run out of paint in the blending zone, I haven't blended it enough, or I haven't put enough drop coat, that's going to stand out more than what it would on a bumper. So I make sure that I drop coat the car first, make sure I'm happy with that, then I'll move on to the bumpers, and I'll drop coat the areas that are butting up edge to edge first. So any middle bits, if I do start running out of paint on the drop coat, it's not so critical if I do run out there. So there is a bit of strategy towards, you know, where I'm drop coating. So yeah, we're on to the clear coat now. The clear coat I used on this is Mipa CX4, which is their premium quick dry clear coat. So they've got a couple of quick dry clear coats, CX2, CX4. CX4's a bit of a higher end clear coat. It's their more premium one, but it is quick dry technology, so 15-minute bake at 60 degrees, and once that's cooled, it's cured, pretty much cured, and you can handle it, and within an hour you can polish it. Bit of a better gloss on the CX4 than there is the CX2, but the CX2 is decent as well. So yeah, I used the HS25 hardener in this, but really should be using HS10 hardeners with Mipa. Their hardeners are geared up for the temperature more than the size of the job. So even the faster drying hardeners, you can still do big jobs with them. It's not, you know, quite often quick hardeners, fast dry hardeners are for smaller single panels, and then you know, as the slower hardeners go up, the bigger the job. It doesn't quite work like that with Mipa. They're geared up for what your temperatures are going to be, you know, your temperatures are like at the time. So yeah, I do quite often just, you know, even jobs of this size, I'll put the HS10 in there. It's not really a difference in how they look. It's normally a rule of thumb: the slower the hardener, the better, you know, the better the finish and the better the gloss. And it does. That rule does sort of apply to this clear coat as well. It's a real good clear coat. It's just got a short polishing window where it's quick dry. So yeah, it doesn't like to be left. If it's left for a few days after a bake, it can be quite hard to polish. And so yeah, two coats. First coat's a little bit lighter than the second coat. So the gun I'm using on this is my X5500, and that's got a 1.20 setup on this gun. I've got a CC gun as well, and I do like using that gun as well. I find the bigger jobs it can be a little bit slow sometimes, the CC gun, and bumpers I find are a bit easier to paint with the O setup, you know, where you've got all your little edges and everything to get around. So yeah, put one nice even closed coat on it. It doesn't have to be you know, super heavy, and you know, sort of medium wet first coat, and then your full coat, and then that's it. It doesn't need any more than that. It's high solid, so you know, you don't want to be putting any more than that on it. Two coats is plenty. I will adjust how I put the first coat on depending on how I want that finish to look. You know, I want it a bit. BMWs, not so much this generation, but the earlier ones have got quite a thick chunky orange peel on them, so I will drop the pressure and put a bit of a heavier coat on the first coat quite often. So yeah, I play about with it. I'm between 1.9 bar and 2.1 bar. They're the pressures that I normally clear coat at. So onto the second coat now. I do wind that fluid in on the first coat as well, So I just wound it out a little bit for the second coat, just to get it on there a little bit wetter. So how I gauge my fluid control on my spray guns is I wind it right out, so I've got full trigger, and then I wind the fluid in until I can feel resistance on the trigger. So then that's an indicator that it's full trigger, full material volume, and then I wind in from there. So on that first coat I had it wound in half a turn from full trigger, and then I just wound it out quarter of a turn for the second coat, just to get a bit more material coming through there. And yeah, a little bit slower. A little bit more of an adjustment on the fluid, just wanted a bit more to come out of there. And yeah, try and keep my distance, you know, try and keep that distance consistent. You can see it's pretty much even all the way there. Keep the distance consistent, keep your speed consistent, keep your overlaps consistent. You know, when I get down low, especially where this car's angled in the booth, I'm up against the wall, I can't really see down there, so yeah, it's a bit of muscle memory kicking in there. I can't see the paint really going, clear coat going on. I need, you know, I apply it, then I have to get down and, you know, get my eye in, catch the light on it, make sure that I've got enough down in the lower areas. I've changed the way I've been spraying lately. I've been spraying from top to bottom. I normally do bottom to top, but I've been doing top to bottom again. I do switch it, to be honest with you, just so, you know, I can see the top, I can see the clear coat going on when I start at the top, so I can get my speed in, get that dialed in, and then, you know, try and carry on with that as I go down. So yeah, it is awkward. It's a bit hard to see low down when I'm up close near the walls and stuff. And yeah, I was having a little bit of you know, playing about with that fluid control on there, just making sure that I'm getting that even finish all over. You know, you can find sometimes you get all your finish in the top areas right, and then as you come down, your speed might vary a little bit if you're not seeing it going on there, which can be a bit awkward. Like I say, it's a bit awkward in this booth being small, and you know, it's dark low down, so yeah, I have to sort of double check, and sometimes I have to go over some areas because I can't see it going on there as it's going on there. So yeah, I do have to sort of make some adjustments along the way as I'm spraying it in, you know, jobs like this in my booth, but I get around it, and it all works, and the results, you know, I'm pretty happy with the results that I get from it. So yeah, it's all good. So yeah, I'll leave you to watch the rest of the clear coat. Yeah, thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. Look after yourselves, and we'll see you again soon.